when the anointed are called to heaven, one of the first assignments is to fight. Yeah.
Recently, I made a video about how Jehovah's Witnesses are not pacifists and how that can be seen right now in terms of shunning disfellowshipped friends and family, and how that possibly may be seen in the future in a more literal way. But one facet of that I hadn't really thought about until another XJW mentioned it is how that plays out not just in terms of the rank and file witnesses, but for the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses specifically. Something I hadn't really put together is that the men who currently make up the governing body, which is at the moment 11 men, believe they themselves will soon be called upon to battle the American government. They believe that they will successfully destroy the U.S. government, that they will end democracy once and for all. They teach that this violent conflict will usher in the 1,000-year reign of Christ prophesied in the Bible book of Revelation. Jesus will appoint the governing body to be mighty kings and priests ruling over a modern-day Garden of Eden on earth. The men on the governing body believe and teach members that the American government is controlled by Satan and his demonic forces, and as such deserves total annihilation. Now, when we look at Christianity in general, this sort of apocalyptic anti-government theology is one that very few other denominations teach. Few, but not no others, as we'll get into in a minute. These witness doctrines might in some respects actually have more in common with what some American militias believe, or various domestic terrorists we've seen over the years, folks like Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols who did the Oklahoma City bombing. These are folks who similarly held that the American government is evil and needs to be violently punished for its sins. But while it may be true that those parallels exist, it quickly brings up the central question: are the 11 men on the governing body a threat in the way that Timothy McVeigh was a threat? Well, we'll come to that. Samuel Hurd, one of those men on the governing body who teaches these doctrines, is especially interesting because he is himself a veteran of the American military. He was drafted in 1954 and spent 2 years in the U.S. Army, primarily stationed overseas on military bases in Germany.
When I was in the Army in Germany years ago, I drove a truck with 5 men inside an M101 howitzer artillery gun attached to the rear of the truck.
Soon after returning home in 1956, he started studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, probably helped in no small part by the fact that he was kind of attracted to the young woman preaching to him. It was actually one of his brother-in-law's sisters. Sam was baptized as a witness in 1957, and he married that young woman, Gloria, in 1959. But in addition to the romantic attraction, Sam did become quite engrossed in the movement's theology. After proving his loyalty with several years of unpaid preaching, pioneering where the need was great, he was hired into his first paid position with the religion as a circuit overseer in 1965. He steadily rose through the ranks, and in 1999 he was appointed to the highest possible position in the religion, one of the governing body. Now, the theology of Jehovah's Witnesses is a split one when it comes to violence. On the one hand, it teaches that members should be non-violent right now, not taking up arms against any person or government.
Now I don't carry around knives, but I carry around my tools. You could say that I did beat my pistols into plowshares now, or weed whacker, or lawnmower.
On the other hand, it preaches this apocalyptic doctrine that any day now will come Armageddon, an incredibly violent battle between God and his followers and Satan and his. And any person deemed unworthy of survival, whether man, woman, or child, is deemed very worthy of a grisly death in that battle.
The apostates and the enemies of Jehovah would say, well, that's gruesome, that's despicable. You teach your people these things? No, God teaches his people these things. This is what he's foretelling.
In 2013, Jehovah's Witnesses introduced a new doctrine, which is that all Christians going to heaven, a group which witnesses teach numbers 144,000, they will all be raptured to heaven right before Armageddon. But we might ask, why? For what reason would their earthly lives be ended early instead of sticking around to shepherd witnesses through that final battle of Armageddon? Yes, Samuel Hurd and the other men on the governing body will be raptured to heaven so they don't miss out on the opportunity to help destroy the American government, to personally kill countless Americans deemed unworthy of life. Thinking about this apocalyptic theology of Jehovah's Witnesses got me thinking about the parallels to the apocalyptic theology of the Branch Davidians, a group led by David Koresh in Waco, Texas. In 1993, the American government besieged the Branch Davidian compound, which ultimately ended with most of the group being killed. The interesting thing is how many parallels there are between the doctrines of the Branch Davidians and those of Jehovah's Witnesses. It actually makes sense because they were both born out of the same Millerite Adventist movement of the mid-1800s. Now, from that starting point, each religion kind of meandered off in different directions, but both religions still to this day have many teachings in common because of that shared foundation.
Do you teach them?
I show them.
Or do you brainwash them?
Doesn't Christ brainwash you, gets rid of the filth, and puts in the good?
Some may say unity of belief, you're brainwashed. Well, we do agree that our thinking has been washed clean from the complicated doctrines that have evolved since Jesus walked the earth.
So, for example, both teach that we are in the last days and that Jesus will soon return to execute vengeance on his enemies. Both teach that a select group of 144,000 will be going to heaven and that those people can be found within their respective religions' members. Both have a strong interest in Bible prophecy, specifically in how Revelation is being fulfilled today. Each has especially zeroed in on the 7 seals mentioned in chapter 5 of Revelation and how each of their religions fulfill that vision. Koresh's final thing he was working on before the compound was destroyed was actually a large document all about the 7 seals vision. Both teach that their movement has strong parallels to ancient Israel, that their religions are the modern-day nation that God selected as his people, just as the Jews were his selection in ancient times. David Koresh's given name was actually Vernon Howell. He chose the new name David as a link to King David, the divinely appointed king from whose line the Messiah would come. And the name Koresh is a transliteration of the Hebrew word for Cyrus, the Persian king in Bible prophecy who freed the Jews from Babylonish captivity. Both teach that the Lamb of God in Revelation is a key character in the Bible, and that the Lamb will battle the forces of evil. Both teach that adherents should be no part of the world, because everything in the world, the desire of the flesh and the desire of the eyes and the showy display of one's means of life, originates not with God, but with Satan. And also because the world is passing away, whereas he that does the will of God remains forever. Both teach that their group will come under attack by the U.S. government. Both teach that only through instruction from their movement's leadership can a person correctly understand the Bible. Both believe in corporal punishment for children in the group. Both teach that loyalty to the religion is more important than the bonds between parents and children. Neither group will willingly report sexual abuse of children in the group. And both teach that it's appropriate to create revenue streams to support the religion's aims. Koresh started a retail gun business. Jehovah's Witnesses primarily buy and sell real estate. One of the few areas the two groups diverge in their theology is on when they will fight the U.S. government. Koresh taught it was proper to fight the government when they attack, while the Branch Davidians are alive. Conversely, Jehovah's Witnesses teach that the anointed will begin their fight against the government after they're raptured to heaven. But other than that timing of when they'll start fighting, there's really not much difference between the doctrines each has of overthrowing the U.S. government. So let's look at that question. Are witnesses less of a threat to the government than the Branch Davidians were? Well, one area is firearms. Koresh ran a firearms business, as we mentioned, and he maintained a heavy arsenal in Waco, Texas. In contrast, Jehovah's Witnesses are not encouraged to use firearms, and members are counseled against getting a job where carrying a firearm would be required. Witnesses are instructed not to use violent force against other people except in self-defense. They teach that Samuel Hurd and the other governing body members will not fight right now. They'll wait to begin until after the rapture.
But in heaven, we will be mighty spirit creatures, fighting alongside our warrior king Jesus Christ.
And as far as witnesses not in the 144,000, those left on earth during Armageddon, the current doctrine is that they will not participate in the U.S. government's overthrow. They will not need to fight in accord with 2 Chronicles 20:17. Now, the counterpoint, as I mentioned in that pacifism video, is that in the Bible's account of Israel's conquest of the Promised Land, it was rare that God would single-handedly wipe out the Canaanites before the Israelites got there. Most of the time, the Israelites themselves did the slaughtering, and God would bless or multiply their efforts. As you'll hear Christians say sometimes, you have to give God something to bless. So would the governing body ever release doctrinal new light to their members, which more closely mirrors those violent passages from Numbers and Deuteronomy, using that to replace the more passive theology from 2 Chronicles 20? Would Samuel Hurd ever take a page from the Branch Davidians and decide to turn his combat training against the very government that trained him, but do it before his rapture instead of after?
Some of us were fighters before we became true Christians. Some even served in various branches of the military. Didn't they, Brother Morris?
Well, it's hard to say 100% what changes they will or won't make in the future. Jehovah's Witnesses definitely want to destroy the government, but for now, it's an attack launched from heaven, not from upstate New York. So again, for now, it's hard to picture the ATF and FBI besieging Witness headquarters in Warwick with tanks and tear gas. The 11 men on the governing body currently remain a theoretical threat, not a concrete one. They do dream of attacking the government, but for now, it's only dreams. Hopefully, it stays that way.
Now, John goes further in verse 11. He identifies now another wild beast. He identifies a beast. This one it's a two-horned wild beast. Notice that there in verse 11. That's the Anglo-American world power. That's a two-horned wild beast.
A second prophecy to consider is recorded in Daniel chapter 2. There we read about an immense image representing a succession of human kingdoms.
The prophecy in Daniel 11 mentions the king of the north and the king of the south.
The clay pictures the radical and popular elements within the sphere of the United States and Britain that weaken its ability to act with iron-like strength.
Who became the king of the south? The alliance between Britain and the United States.
During these last days, the Anglo-American power has been the king of the South.
There is no advanced industrial democracy in the world more politically divided or politically dysfunctional than the United States today.
The talk put up a hard fight for the faith, reminded us that, as is true in all fights, in our fight, we have enemies.
The king of the South even threw into jail those who were taking the lead in the preaching work.
Do those false accusations sound familiar? They're the same ones our enemies sometimes hurl against us today. They don't pay taxes. They work against the government's interests. They're rebellious and seditious. They're uncontrollable. All false charges, of course.
This arrogant horn symbolizes the Anglo-American world power again, the last world power.
Our King, Jesus Christ, is more powerful than any human government. Soon he will destroy not only the kings of the north and the south, but all of his enemies. And he will deliver God's loyal people.
Ezekiel chapter 38 describes that these kings will attack us in their role as Gog of Magog.
We as Jehovah's people are outnumbered by people of the world by about 900 to 1.
Now, since we as God's people live in many different countries, these kings will need to work together across national borders in order to attack us all at the same time.
Gog of Magog, this coalition of nations, is going to lead an all-out attack on Jehovah's servants.
Now, this could be a very intimidating situation.
спасти, и над тобой сгущает небо тучи, и кажется, что от оков нельзя спастись, не дремлет враг, удобный ищет случай. В молитве голову склони, и в этот миг Иегова станет ближе.
Should it make us feel just completely filled with anxiety? Should we be in terror of those events that are coming? Not at all.
The remnant of spiritual Israel, including the brothers on the governing body at that time, will be with us when this coalition attacks us.
Are you ready? Are you ready to be glad over her destruction? I think you are.
Just think about the emotions that the Anointed Ones will feel for us as they come to our rescue.
We don't take it upon ourselves to close the door to salvation. Jehovah shuts the door, and we can't push it open to let Mom or anyone else in.
In one country, we met with circuit overseers from 3 different language groups. I asked them the question, what do our brothers need most? In unison, they immediately replied, Armageddon.
We can just imagine how happy they will be when they follow Jesus to deliver us.
Tit for tat, you kill my dog, I kill your cat.
To their horror, they will realize that they miscalculated when they attacked Jehovah's people.
Jesus and the Anointed will completely conquer Satan, the demons, and all human governments in opposition to Jehovah at Armageddon, the climax of the coming great tribulation.
Mankind's most powerful weapons are like wet firecrackers compared to Michael's mighty power.
The Lamb will conquer them. Also those with him who are called and chosen and faithful, anointed Christians, will do so.
His offensive weapons are powerful, much more powerful than needed to do the job of rescuing Jehovah's people and sweeping out of existence Satan's entire wicked system.
No wonder that our text for today comes from a Watchtower article with the title, Armageddon is good news. Yes, it is good news for all those who serve Jehovah in heaven and on earth.
And we warmly welcome all newly baptized ones.
Keep in mind, there may not be enough time left for your students and new brothers and sisters to learn all that you know.
Does the governing body know when Armageddon is going to come? Yes, we do.
And we're so happy to have you join us in our united family of intense fighters.
When Gog of Magog attacks Jehovah's people, we may receive direction that may not seem practical. So courageously following directions now will help us to do so then.
We will know if we were ready as Jehovah protects us when the nations turn their guns on us.
No weapon formed against you will have any success.
Even children can be conquerors.
Will the brothers tell us how to fight the people who will be attacking us?
See now all nations opposing the sovereign Jehovah, though mightier than Pharaoh, they too will suffer shame. Doom now awaits them, they will not survive Armageddon. Soon everyone will know that Jehovah is God's name.
Armageddon's coming, and you don't want to miss out on everlasting life.
There's no doubt about it. God's kingdom will destroy all human governments at Armageddon during the time of the Anglo-American world power.
We look forward to the time when you're there and you'll say, this is it.
How exciting that event, which will take place in the near future, will be.
And frankly, for friends of Jehovah God, how reassuring that they're finally going to be gone. All these despicable enemies that have just reproached Jehovah's name, destroyed, never ever to live again.
Now, whether we face death with dignity during these last days, or we experience miraculous deliverance at the Great Tribulation, either way, what can we say?
We will be protected as long as we are ready to obey.
And if you think about it, Armageddon really is a rescue operation.
Brothers and sisters, don't you just long for the day when you will see those things with your own eyes? What a wonderful time that will be when we experience the salvation of Jehovah.